All right, welcome everybody to episode 82 or 83. I'm not quite sure which one this is going to drop as, but for sure it's going to be the 8th episode of the solo episodes, which is crazy because of how much nerves and how much I kicked around the idea of doing these solo episodes all together, and how much fear there was around them and how nervous I was to start. And now I've done 8 episodes and they're one of my most favorite parts of the podcast. They're so cathartic to be able to just have an opportunity just to say everything that's been on your chest for the last couple of weeks. And I find that I think I've mentioned this before in these solo casts, is that I can feel it if I am not actually recording these episodes regularly. I can feel it in myself, and I can feel that I'm getting antsy and that I really rely on this to just keep myself centered and to keep myself aligned with my goals and what I'm chasing after. And it's, for myself, I don't know why, it's easier to talk things out to myself and figure out and see where I'm off path. And I think it's because I haven't had a lot of opportunity just to talk to myself. I talk to myself a lot. I don't know if that'll surprise you guys or not with what you see of me on this podcast week after week, but I need quiet time and I need time alone to talk to myself. And that is not time, just in between doing things. And like I said, I listen to a lot of podcasts and that takes up a lot of my free time. And that's not really time just sitting and thinking. And over the past year and a half, I have not been alone once until this weekend, which is also a big deal to me because I am very introverted and I need this time to talk to myself and do things like this. And it's one thing to do it in a podcast and get everything out, but also just to have, some consistent time, 24, 48 hours with nobody around, just to reset and talk to yourself and go on these tangents in your mind and let everything kind of run wild and not be interrupted or having to, think for other people. So I'm going to get to all that, but I just wanted to just start it off by just taking a moment to be thankful for what this podcast and what these solo episodes give me the opportunity to do. And it's also a little bit of a catch up to let you guys, in on my life and what I'm doing and how things are going. And I know that on the intro to some of the other podcasts, I usually give a little bit of a heads up on that, but it's usually 1 to 2 minutes of just kind of, hey, I'm doing good. Hey, I'm doing bad. These are kind of the little things. Here's how I'm trying to turn it around. This is what I'm working on. But with these longer form ones like this, I can kind of tell the story, paint the picture of exactly what I'm going through. And I think that is fun for me to do. It's cathartic, like I said, but then also I think it's just another gateway for people that want to come along this journey and want to follow along what it's like to start a podcast and to chase a dream like this. You get to see it, warts and all, the ups and the downs, exactly what I'm feeling about it. And you guys can follow through. And then not only that, I can look back on this in 10 years and say like, oh man, how was it that hard at the start? Was it that lonely? Was it this? Was it that? And I might not be able to see everything, but I think every couple weeks, hopefully maybe once a week, if I could get my shit together a little better, but how it is now, every couple weeks, that's fine. Just as little check-in points for me to be able to go back in a couple years and see where I was and how the process was going, and maybe read a little bit more in between the lines of some of these messages that I'm leaving so cryptically because I can't talk about everything I want to talk about just yet. I'm sure that will ring back to me in the future, and I'll be able to kind of get a really good sense of where I was. And then another cool thing that's a part of this, and I don't know how much I've talked about on the podcast, but is definitely a big motivating factor is, and I get this a lot from Joey Diaz, who I've definitely talked about on this podcast a bunch of times. He's a comedian. He's one of the funniest guys alive, if not the funniest guy alive. He's grew up in New York, had a crazy story, lost his parents quite early, a Cuban immigrant that just blows people away with his kindness and his humor, and at the same time has done some really rough shit in his life and some dark things to survive, and has been to some dark places, but he talks about it very openly. And he has a daughter now that he loves with all his heart and treats her just like a princess. But when he was coming up in comedy, when he was just starting comedy, he had another daughter in Colorado, and it didn't really work out. He's told the story ad nauseum, everything start to finish of kind of all that went down with the court cases and the interpersonal stuff that lost the relationship with that daughter, but it still haunts him, and you can see, and he wants to show that he's a better person, that he's come over and there is that love there and that he does care. And part of his podcast, I mean, obviously some of it is making money and some of it is just getting his story out and finding his place in the world. But I think another big part of it is a love story, so that if at any point that daughter wanted to go back and see who her father was, there's going to be a clear picture over, I don't know how many years that he did that podcast, almost a decade, if not more, of exactly who he is, warts and all, deep down. You can make your own judgments. It's not trying to sugarcoat it. And I just love the idea of that. And maybe my kids one day can go back and look at these. And that is a really cool thought. Or anybody, you know, it doesn't have to be kids. It could be family. It could just be someone that you're interested in. It's just a really cool idea that is really taps into, I think, the human nature of wanting to be remembered and wanting to leave some sort of mark on the world, whether that's through having kids or something like this. I think that's something that probably a lot of people could relate to, and it's something that's quite cool for this. So that's also part of the reason I want to do this. And then also part of the reason I'm doing this is because it is Sunday morning, the night after UFC 264 right now. And I'm saying that because I'm not sure if I'm going to release this on Monday or on Friday. I have two kind of, either this episode or another episode, which I'm sure I'll talk about with, or I have talked about even on the year-end review with the music producer Side Chick from Montreal, who Nick Walker's his name, and he is one of the funniest motherfuckers ever. And he has a new single coming out on Friday. So I might release this little solo episode on Monday just as a holdover, and then release his episode on Friday instead, right in time with his latest single, which I've heard a little clip of here and there, and it sounds awesome. I love his music. He's a really special talent, and just a really good dude, and a really funny guy, and just kind-hearted and unique and true to himself. And I'm really excited about that. I'm not sure how I got onto that, where I was going with that, but anyways, UFC 264. So the other reason I want to do this is just to recap what a night that was. And for me personally, and just the personal stories going into it, what my thoughts were on all the fights, I just couldn't not jump on it right away and get my thoughts out. I think come Monday morning, I'll be listening to all my podcasts, and I'll be just having my head filled with all the other takes and everybody's opinions on it. And I'm already getting a little bit from Instagram, so I'm just trying to turn that stuff off and get my own thoughts out right away, and then I can see how that compares with everybody else. And I think that's almost the fun part, and I'm sure we'll be pretty par for the course on Sunday mornings after big UFC cards like this. Is probably going to be just a little bit of a breakdown of what I saw, what it was like as a really diehard fan that followed all the interviews and all the press conferences and everything leading up to it, and all the looks and the tells and what I thought of it. And hopefully going forward, I'll be able to, find some more really in-depth MMA fans that would love to spend their Sunday mornings hopping on with me and breaking it down. But that's something done in the future, and it's good practice to try it on my own and just see what I can come up with. But let's work up to that, because I think the last time I left you guys on a solo episode for updates of what's going on in my life was the year-end wrap-up. And that was a fun episode. I'm trying to remember where I was mindset-wise that weekend before the Monday that was the 1-year anniversary date, and recording that episode. I think already I was pretty stressed with work. I think I've been pretty open with that, of just the stress load that has been added, or not added. Like, work is always stressful, but it just seems like there's things that keep just stacking up, and it's just a never ending, putting out fires, disaster avoidance, one thing to another, of just it never ending for months and months and months. And then you get, maybe a couple weeks, and then it layers right back on. So I'm not sure exactly where I was, but it was very tempered that weekend, even if I was very stressed by the thankfulness and the gratefulness of what that year was for me and what I got to do with this podcast. So I think I was in not too bad of a place. I was definitely just getting overwhelmed. I don't know how much I've talked about this on the podcast. I have a lot of anxiety, and a lot of weird anxiety that doesn't make a lot of sense except to me. I have a lot of anxiety about leaving my safe space of, like, my house. So traveling even to Edmonton just to see my friends, which I love to do, that 8 hours of travel. And it's not even the travel time, because I like to drive and I like to just listen to stuff like podcasts, but it's the getting all the dog stuff together and getting my girlfriend together and getting everything packed up and in the car and getting on the road at a time. That stuff really stresses me out. Every time we left the house on a vacation as kids, it was a huge fight, and it was very stressful. And I think I internalized a lot of that and all the fighting and the yelling. And now every time I leave I just love being in my safe spot. And that's what I think has been pretty tough for me to be in Grand Prairie as well, because now I had kind of my alone time when I'd be in Grand Prairie, when my girlfriend would be back in Winnipeg when she was doing her master's. Now she's been up here, so it's a little bit different story. But I'd have kind of my alone time to reset. And then when I would want to see friends or family, I'd have to drive, 8 hours in a weekend to go see them, which was whatever. And when I was by myself, it was no big deal. Just throw myself in the truck and drive, and I could do that pretty well. I didn't have all the extra added stress. But then over the last year and a half, I haven't ever had any alone time because of the pandemic. My girlfriend's been here and I love her and it's great. And so nice to not be alone, because that was also a very lonely time at the very start of the pandemic when I was alone in this house for a couple months, not seeing anybody but, maybe one or two people at the office was not very fun either. And you need to find that balance. So that was kind of the start of that. I was just busy, lots of weekends. I'm always trying to fill my weekends with podcast stuff when I'm not working, and not really finding a lot of time for myself. There'd be a couple weekends every here and there where I'd be home for a weekend, but still, you got the dog around, you have your girlfriend, you got things happening here and there. You've got work. Things go wrong at work throughout the weekend. It's not a 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday. We work 24/7. There's always things going wrong, and you're always getting pulled out of what you're doing. So I had that weekend, then it was off to Edmonton. Like I said, love doing it, love to see it. It was one of the best weekends I've had, going up to Edmonton the following weekend after that last solo episode. We did a bachelor party for my soon-to-be brother-in-law, Liam, who was episode 2 on the podcast, I think, if you guys want to go back and get a little piece of who Liam is. And we had such a fun time. We did everything safe. If anybody's worrying about COVID, I know it's silly even to talk about, but, we went golfing. We were all outside. We had outdoor, games, sack toss, some little kiddie pools because it was hotter than sin that weekend. And we just had a great time, and it was so nice to see everybody. And you forget how reinvigorating it is to be around people that you love, and just to have those laughs and all of that. And I wish that didn't come with 8 hours of driving and packing up and all this stuff. And then, you're trying to have a podcast to release on Monday. So you're editing in the middle of that weekend, and, you try and get it done the week before, but you're so busy trying to get the truck packed up that you don't get it done. But like I said, it was an amazing weekend, but not a lot of downtime. And it was just kind of adding up of just this go, no resets. And then it was, get through that weekend. I believe it was then only a couple days, and then we made a trip out to Winnipeg because my girlfriend hasn't seen her family in, I don't know, a long time, almost a year, if not. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I should have figured that all out before I started talking out my ass here, but it's been tough. And moving away from home during a pandemic and not having those support systems, and then to have all the same things that are added on me added onto her, and then I have so much guilt of the only reason she would ever be out in Alberta away that far from her family is for me, and I think there's a lot of positives that come with that change as well, and I'm not discounting those or putting anything on her, but it's a lot of stress to think about, like, oh man, are you happy? Like, am I being selfish by having all these, I know I'm selfish, and I know I'm selfish in a lot of these goals. And I have to be, and I've come to terms with that. But then in other ways, I know that I need to make sure that I'm balancing out that selfishness with, just those nice little things, right? Like, and it's hard to nail down exactly what that is and what all goes into that. And I'm trying to be better, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm cognizant of that, because I know in the past I have been so single-mindedly focused on myself that I forget those around me, which is so funny to say because it's always the one that's closest, right? Like a personal, a relationship, because for whatever reason, I'm so giving to everyone around me that sometimes I don't know what it is. You almost take for granted the person that's closest, because that that's undying, and that you can kind of, take out a loan on that time to make sure that you're not, so you can be there for other people too, even if they are also close to you, like a best friend, right? Like, I'd drop everything if one of my best friends had to call me and stuff. And sometimes that takes away from the person you're closest with, because you can do that and you have that opportunity. And, I don't even know where I'm going with all this, but it's just all the things that go with it. And that's adding on to the stress of, I need to do something. So just made a plan to get us out to Winnipeg for the long weekend, and bring little Ahsoka, our new puppy, to see my girlfriend's parents and family before she's getting too big to do it with, and that she's just growing so fast. It seems like every week or two she doubles in size. It's amazing. So it was kind of this double-edged sword of I am just reaching my breaking point of just being so stressed out and having so much going on in all these domains of my life, the podcast, with work, personal stuff, and just not having any reset time of what I need, of just turning everything off and just cooling down and recharging my batteries, which I really need and have not had for years on end, it feels like, which is driving me a bit nuts, if I'm honest with you guys. So it's this double-edged sword. Like I said, like we go and we have this amazing weekend, just like Edmonton was an amazing weekend, and I enjoy it so much. And we see these people that you love, and you get filled up in this other way that you didn't realize you're also missing out on, right? Like it's this odd feeling of really needing to be away from everybody and just reset, and also needing to see people and needing those people that you love and those people that you've missed over this year. It's so odd to hold those two things, but it makes a lot of sense to me, right? But it's hard to explain to other people. So I'm going through this and I'm having this amazing weekend. It was so nice to see my girlfriend reunite with, her grandparents and her parents and her aunties and uncles and cousins, and just to see these people again, did everything safely, met people outside, did all this stuff. I mean, you think Alberta's COVID crazy, and people going into fucking Manitoba, I almost fucking killed myself. I couldn't even believe it. Like the madness. And I am very opinionated on this stuff, as you guys will see, but I don't like arguing with people. Well, I love arguing with people. I don't like arguing with people that I don't, this is going to come off mean. How do I explain this one? If you're willing to have a real true argument and you're going to actually back up your points and not turn to just bullshit arguments that aren't true, I love to argue with you. How rare it is to find that just on the street, like in a podcast like this where people are forced to, it creates that environment. That's why I love the podcast so much. It creates an environment where you have to stand by your ideas, and you can push, and you can. Like if I push people in real life the way I would push somebody on this podcast to defend their ideas, you'd be an asshole. And I hate being an asshole. I'm so concerned about everybody liking me that it's not worth it to me. But then to have to sit there for hours on end and just hear this discussion of things that are factually incorrect and that I could just totally tear apart, but I don't want to. That's not very fun, right? I don't want to be that guy, and I just let it go. But that was also very frustrating to deal with, and I deal with it all the time. I mean, that's just turning on Instagram. I have 90% of my friends from university are all just not doing any research at all, just resharing it. And even when you get them to watch something, they're so hard, their blinders on that they'll completely ignore it and come up with the wildest excuses not to see this information. It is absolutely fascinating to me, but it's been very frustrating as well, right? This is just all these things that are kind of building up. But like I said, it was an awesome weekend, very sad to go, got back. And here's the other piece too, is now, it was a long weekend, but had to take a couple days off. And that this is something I really struggle with, taking time off from work. And I get told, my dad talks to me all the time about this. Like you can't feel bad about taking time off. You need to take time off. And he says, like I took time off. Like remember when we go to BC in the summers and stuff, like I did it too. Like you need to be able to do this, but it's knowing what you have to deal with coming back and what it builds up to. It's like, why am I enjoying these time off? Right? It was great to go to Winnipeg, but to see what a fucking nightmare it was to come back and try and get yourself dug out, get above water from everything that falls onto you. And it's like, yeah, you took time off, 10 years ago when we were a quarter of the size of a company and had so many less balls in the air. It's really tough to take time off like this. And it's really tough. It's tough to enjoy it fully, because as much as that weekend was amazing, you're also just having this ball of stress built up on you of what's to come and what is going on at work. And when there's things going wrong and you're not there to help, and you just have this guilt, or I do anyways, this immense guilt of, shit's not going right. Like, and we have amazing workers and employees and coworkers that just do an amazing job to not bug you while you're gone and to handle all these things, which is awesome too, but you just feel like you should be there and that you need to be helping more. And I don't know, I think I definitely have a bit of a wackadoo mind where I go to worst case scenarios all the time, but I see it in everybody's eyes that everyone is mad at you for being gone, even though you work hard and you do your best and stuff. And, had a bit of an anxiety attack, I think my first one, getting ready to go back to work. Like when I knew I had work the next day coming back from that trip to Winnipeg, I just had so many things on the go, and and it was so funny to recognize it of just this, like my heart was beating super fast and my breath was really hard to get under control. And I do lots of breath work. I talk about all the time working on my breath, and just kind of that, like, what is going on? Like just trying and just figured I'm going to go meditate, because that always calms everything. I can meditate for 20 minutes and I'm back, baby, right? Like that's my go-to move. Meditated, still didn't go away. And I'm thinking, I think this might be an anxiety attack, which I think is the best thing for it. And I still don't know to this day. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose myself. It's just kind of what it felt like. But I think recognizing that so early on into it, that, hey, I think this is what this is. And it kind of calmed me away from it, that it never spiraled out of control. Like you hear where people start having an anxiety attack. They usually think it's a heart attack. They start freaking out about that. It spirals. And then you get into the real bad parts of it. And you hear these horror stories on what anxiety attacks can be. But I recognize it so early that, hey, I think this is what it is. And almost laughed to myself like, hey, you idiot. Like, you got shit to do. You can't be reacting like this, which didn't help anything, but also I think it prevented it from escalating further and getting into a full-blown anxiety attack like it can be, like you've probably heard stories of. And yeah, it was just kind of interesting to me. And I just thought it was, it wasn't fun by any means. It was not a fun night, but what I did is, called my dad, had a really good conversation with him about work and why I'm stressed and all this stuff. And he told me, you can't be afraid to take off work. You got to do this stuff. Like, we'll get through it, which is great to hear. And it's awesome to have him, because he never reacts to any of this, right? He's, and I shouldn't say never to any of it. He gets stressed too, but it's just so rare and so controlled, and he barely lets any of it show through, that it's nice to have that to kind of lean on and just get that, assurance that, no, we're going to figure this stuff out. We always figure it out. Like we're going to get through it, and don't stress out about it. But, yeah, that was good. And that got me through, so coming back in Wednesday of just trying to kick ass and work through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I know I told you guys I'm not working Fridays. That was one of the big things I was proud of. That Friday before, when I went up to the bachelor party, I did not have Friday off. Work just took my whole Friday from me, even though I took a pay cut to not work Fridays, but I figured that was coming and I tried not to get too upset about it. But I did it. So then the following Friday, because I was not there Monday and Tuesday, I took it upon myself. I'm going to work that Friday, right? That makes sense in my head. And I tried to just work as hard as I could for those 3 days and get caught up in it. And I was proud of what I could do. And then, on top of that, Friday we took, the dog to, first of all, I missed something. So then another big thing, Friday morning, had my first private jiu-jitsu lesson with a guy from town here in Grand Prairie, who is I think a purple belt, and really nice guy, really taught me a lot. And I'd gone to a couple of jiu-jitsu classes before COVID started, and I enjoyed it a little bit, but I felt like such a fish out of water, and I felt like it was such a big class and nobody was really showing me anything. I felt like I learned nothing. I enjoyed it, and it got a little bit of the fear out of it of going into the classes, and that was a big thing to get over, because I'm kind of a chicken and I don't like trying new things, or I can have a lot of excuses in my head to prevent me from trying new things. But it was awesome. It was nothing like those first couple classes. It was just me and him. He, showed me all the moves, very in depth. Showed me a good arm bar, showed me a good triangle. It was so cool to actually do the moves right, and actually have somebody that can correct the little intricacies of it to make sure that it was getting better, and that now I actually understand the concept, and probably couldn't pull it off on somebody that was trying to resist it yet, but at least I know the process of it. And that was so cool to just add 2 tools to my toolbox, where I could probably fuck somebody up on it in under very, very slim circumstances of things going very right. I could maybe fuck somebody up with something. And that is just a cool feeling. And I just loved it. And I loved talking MMA with him before and after, and talking about these upcoming fights this weekend. It was so much fun. So that was really fun on Friday. Was a big pick me up. And then taking Ahsoka to her third lessons. The lady in town, you guys have to meet her. She's so awesome. Our dog trainer. She knows her shit so well. She's been doing it for so long, has such a good personality, really listens to us on what we want to learn with the dog, and is more teaching us than she's teaching the dog. And it's just been a really great experience. Every time we leave, we feel like we've leveled up as dog owners and that we've gotten better, and it's so much fun. And we look forward to going back every time. So then did that. And then my girlfriend took the dog and took off to Edmonton for Courtney's bachelorette party, which, if you listen back to what I said earlier about needing some time alone, oh my God, was that nice. I felt terrible because you feel guilty about being happy that, somebody's leaving. It's just an awful thing to kind of figure out. And it was sad when she left, and, and also the dog too, like going to miss the dog, but it was just so nice to have that night. Like, I was all weirded out. I had no idea how to be on my own anymore. Like, over a year, I kept being quiet to not wake up the dog, even though the dog wasn't there. I kept forgetting that. I kept hearing things, but I really settled in, and I enjoyed that Friday night. I just listened to podcasts. I played some video games. I just chilled right out. Got to go to bed and just sleep without a dog waking up every 2 seconds. And this is the other thing. I also haven't slept for 2 months because we got this dog, and the dog keeps me up all fucking night. I have literally slept. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that was the other thing. So when I had that anxiety attack on Tuesday night, and couldn't go into work, I also slept literally 0 time that night. Not an hour, not a minute, nothing. The whole night. Went into work that Wednesday and just like a zombie, but just powered through it. Just drank teas like a motherfucker and got through it. And then the next night, Wednesday night, slept, maybe 1-2 hours. And then I was just a zombie. I couldn't even think on Thursday. I was so in rough shape and just needed rest. So then Friday night, sleeping a whole night, get fucking real, right? Like, I planned on getting up at 8 a.m. and running because I had a podcast at 10. Not a chance. I slept right till 9:15, got up, made a tea, meditated for 20 minutes, and hopped on that podcast. And so that was yesterday. That was Saturday. And it was so much relief just to wake up and feel like you've slept a full night. Oh, couldn't get over that. Just the amount of things I was able to think through with a night to myself, of things with work and things with the podcast, and just evaluating, just having some quiet time to think, how are things going? Am I okay with it? What do I need to change? It was so enjoyable. I loved it so much, and I need to really understand that and prioritize that, if this is something that I need. And yeah, and I've come up with a couple really cool ideas and changes for my strategy going forward of ways to bring that back in. I just wanted to highlight that, of just understanding your relationships with different things, and relationships with yourself. You need to find out what you need. And sometimes that can feel selfish, and you have to, go through some painful things to find out what that is, but it's very good work, and I'm so thankful for it. So anyway, hopped on that podcast at 10. Was an amazing podcast, guys. I interviewed this 16-year-old, and just one more time, 16-year-old kid from the UK. He's another one of these Peterson Pals kids, and he fucking blew me away. And he's blown me away for a while, in the group and texting these things and saying that. But it's one thing to sound smart on Facebook, and you get to think through before you post, and you can look things up, and you can come up with quotes and that. And you could tell from that this is a very bright individual, and that I was probably in for a really fun conversation. I knew that going in, and I talked to a couple people like Alex and Ethan, who I've had on the podcast before, and they said, oh no, like, he's the real deal. You're going to have a great conversation. Like, you don't need any prompts or nothing. Like, just start talking philosophy. It'll go from there. And man, was he impressive. Like, and how much hope that gave me to see that there's 16-year-olds in the world that are thinking like this, that are, I'm trying to wrap my head around so many of these subjects at 27, and he's got, a decade and a year on me, and he's already got a almost better grasp of a lot of them than I do. And that is just so inspiring. And I'm so curious to see what this kid does with his life, because he's 16. He's not even out of high school, right? But just if he's got that type of just raw horsepower to work with, whatever he decides to apply it to, it's going to be impressive. And I'm so excited to watch what that is. And to, even if we did one podcast a year for the next, 10 years, just to keep an eye and track what he is doing and what he applies himself, it might be nothing. He might just say, I really love, painting, ornate teacups, and that's what he does for his life, right? That's fine too. I'm just saying, I'm curious, whatever it is, I'm sure it'll have a great mindset around it. And I'm sure I will be learning from him and testing my ideas against this kid for a long time. His name's Elijah, and I just think he's really something special. So had that a couple things times during the podcast. Work was, I was getting emails and stuff during work and things were going wrong. And I was just, no, I'm doing the podcast right now. I will address it after. So as soon as I got off the podcast, called work, started making calls, figuring things out, getting things fixed, went out for a run, got my 10K in, got back, ripped over to work, talked to them, made sure everything was okay because I knew that the fights were starting right at 4:00 and I wanted to be settled in. So then got that all kind of figured out, was comfortable that everything was going smooth. A couple more calls, ran over, got my same thing I get for lunch every day, my freshie salad, and came home and settled in for a night of fights. And what a night they were. I was telling people all week about start early, set up your whole day, start at 4 like I am, watch every fight. You will not be disappointed. This is the card of all cards, right? Like this is the Mecca, the best card that they've ever created. Hands down, not even close, right? UFC 200. There's been a lot of really good cards on paper and in reality, right? Like they can only do so much. They can only make the matchups if they want to make them exciting. It's tough to do. And one thing they did, and this is something I want to talk about. So also just represent, if we're talking fight talk, I got to get the full Sugar get up going, hat and hoodie. Got this amazing Sugar Sean O'Malley 13-0. See if you can see the back. O'Malley. Let's go. Wait for it. One more piece on there. Oh yeah. The Sugar Show. The Sugar Show. Look at this. Look at this. If you're just listening and not on the video, you just missed a big piece and you might have to go check this back on the YouTube when it's out because that was pretty special what I just did there. And actually this is so annoying. I can't do it. I can't do it. Let me get my hat back on. Oh, this is just going to be straight garbage for you audio listeners. Just skip ahead about 15 seconds. There we go. Rehat it up, but I just wanted to highlight my amazing Sugar merch. So this is what I'm saying. I love Sugar Sean O'Malley. And when I love somebody this much, that's the main event to me, right? Like it is great that we get a Connor Dustin card, and I'm just as excited as every other fight fan to see what the antics of what that was going to be. But to know that you have somebody like Sugar on the card that is going to be just lights out exciting and that has so much charisma and so much star power. You have multiple main events, right? So I was pretty pumped going into it. And to start the card off, Zhalgas Zhumagulov and Jerome Rivera. Zhumagulov got really fucked on a decision not too long ago, and it was tough to watch. He's a really huge star in Kazakhstan where he's from. Has a lot of people behind him. Not a huge fan base just on pure numbers, but when you look at regionally what he is to his people, he is awesome. And to lock up that standing guillotine that early in the fight, which is awesome for him, awesome for his career. And this is the early prelims. This isn't even like the televised prelims on TSN. This is like you have to have Fight Pass and watch them there. And these are huge names that are fighting. So then Omari Akhmedov and Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is a middleweight. He went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya a couple years ago in, I think, Izzy's second or third fight. It was an awesome scrap. Brad Tavares is just so durable, so tough, and so skilled as well. He's another one of those Hawaiian fighters. And they just, it's almost something like the surfing style, this flow state that they get into where they're just not thinking, they're just flowing. And it's so amazing. And I feel like you can really tap into this rhythm of cardio and pace that you can put on guys, and you could just see Akhmedov just could not handle it. He's so strong and so scary and just throwing with everything. It almost took Tavares' head off like 10 times early in the fight. But just, 15 minutes of entertainment. I don't know why it was a split decision. I don't know who gave Akhmedov these judges in MMA. It's so bad. And there's so many things that they could be trying, and just the fact that they're not trying anything blows my mind. The fact that they couldn't try going up to 5 judges, the fact that they couldn't go up to changing it so that the judges are watching on a monitor, or that you have 3 judges cage side, 3 judges watching from the TV feed, because you see things way differently. And to not at least attempt some of these things and try these things out, having, like I've said on a couple episodes, a panel of, a whole 1,000-person panel that puts their judging up online, right? And then you compare from that and you start to pull people and maybe have that as a feeder system, right? Like have some sort of accountability system built into this. But it's just sad to see the judges have such an impact on the sport when they really shouldn't. And yeah. And then to go on top of that and to know it's two checks. You get paid to show up and you get paid to win. You get screwed over by the judges, you lose half your paycheck. And these guys aren't getting paid a lot, right? The guys at the top might be, but these guys aren't. So glad that Brad Tavares got the win. It was tough to see him have to sweat it out when they're reading the decision that it could have went either way. But just again, 2 fights in a row started off, right? Not a lot of people probably saw these fights because it is on the early prelims, but for the diehards like me, started the night off great. And then we get Jennifer Maia versus Jessica Eye, the number 4 flyweight fighter versus the number 7 flyweight fighter. And Jessica Eye, I don't know. I've always had a little bit of something there where I love most fighters and I don't like to talk badly about any fighters because I just value what they're doing and how impressive it is that they step in that octagon and put their life on the line. They're gladiators. I think you're crazy. If you've never fought in your life and stepped in that cage and got locked in, you have nothing to say negatively. But having said all that, and I think, if I'm honest, it's probably just because of how much I love Valentina Shevchenko and how long I've followed her career, and in that matchup against Jessica and just the fight talk and how it was coming up, that just rubbed me the wrong way. But man, did she really win me over in this fight. Jennifer Maia, I thought was in control. I was really, again, after seeing the judges for the Tavares fight to go to split decision, I thought maybe they were going to give Jessica, I thought maybe it'd go split. I thought Jessica might have won just with the pressure and the way she was fighting and just the indomitable spirit that she showed when they had that clash of heads and split her forehead open, literally from like the middle of this eyeball to the middle of this eyeball, like this thick, like literally had a full gash open on her forehead and just bleeding down her face, didn't give a fuck, just kept coming like the Terminator. But Jennifer Maia, I think, just is, two steps ahead in the striking at all times. And just because Jessica looked like the dominant fighter coming forward, I just thought she landed more damage and was so glad that it was, a unanimous decision, 29-28, like it should have been for Jennifer Maia. That was, but again, 15-minute battle, like start to finish, so exciting. And that was just the early prelim. So then first fight of the prelims is this Dricus du Plessis. He literally said it like 6 times on the broadcast after to make sure that people remembered his name. And I've already forgot it. Apologies. Versus Trevin Giles, who is a really good fighter. And at middleweight, they need some big names to come in. They need somebody to shake it up. I think that this Dricus du Plessis, he might have a number by his name at the end of the weekend. He might be ranked. He might break the top 15, but if not, it's going to be soon. And just the how good he looked and the type of finish that was, and then how good he did on the mic, that was a star-making performance. I said it on my Instagram after. Like, that is star-making material right there. When you go put a performance like that, get the crowd on your side, rip the mic like that, that is everything you need to get on that rocket ship. The only things that stand in his way is how active he is. If he comes back and he fights quick, he will be right on a rocket ship. I was telling, I can't remember who I told, maybe it was Chase. I said, I think this guy is in the top 10 within the next year for sure. Right? Like, just the way he fought, and who knows, maybe it was, maybe there's some glaring weakness that just didn't get exposed. The fight game is wild, but, I don't know. I'm really high on that guy. I think he's going to be fun to watch for a lot of years to come, which brings us to the next fight. So this is the highs and lows of being this big of a fan of these fighters. Ryan Hall. So, I said, Sugar Show's fighting. There's 2 main events. Really, it was like there's 3 main events because I'm such a big fan of Ryan Hall. Not just his skills in the cage, but his mindset and the way he thinks about fighting and the way he, is able to articulate these ideas and bring his high level intelligence in the cage with him and not just check it at the door and let his skills take over like so many people do. And also is an amazing skill to have, right? Like when I go to like the Brad Tavares of it, of just getting into that flow. And I think Ryan Hall was too, but to see him get knocked out like that was just so tough to watch. And this Ilya Topuria, again, same thing. I think he's going to be top 10 in the next year as well, right? Depending on activity and that. I just don't see anybody at the bottom of the top 15 that's going to give him much much trouble, really. But just, I want to see Ryan Hall back. I think he has a style that nobody wants to fight against, first of all, which is what's made this so heartbreaking to finally see it happen like this, because he's trying to get a fight for so long. Nobody in the top 15 would fight Ryan Hall. Nobody wanted to put their name in. He finally got matched up against Dan Ige, which was a huge name, ranked guy, just fought the other weekend and looked great. And Ryan Hall got hurt. And now, again, nobody wants to fight him. So this up-and-coming killer, Ilia Topuria, who I think we're going to be seeing, in title contention the next couple of years, puts his name in. And it was a back-and-forth fight, and everyone's laughing. What is Ryan Hall doing, spinning around? But he knows what he's doing, and he's so good. And he was, he figured out that one move, and he'll come back with a better strategy on the next one. But no way was that a stomping either way. It was, you see a first round knockout like that, and you think it just doesn't tell the whole story of the fight. And I just think we're going to look back, and Ryan Hall is going to do impressive things for years to come. I think he's going to be one of those guys. He's going to have a great rest of his career. I think he's going to still do some amazing things and really shock people. But then when he becomes a coach and starts training people, we're really going to see the impact he can have for years and years to come. If not, if he doesn't decide to go do even bigger and better things, or, run for office or whatever it is, he is that type of intelligence that could do whatever he puts his mind towards, right? He is one of those people that, you can see the raw horsepower under the hood, in that dome is right up there with the highest of the highs, right? Like I said, go see him on the Lex Friedman podcast and listen to him talk. He's done it maybe once or twice, and he's done some other interviews. He's just someone I can't speak highly enough of, and to watch him get knocked out was absolutely heartbreaking. But that's what I'm saying. That's the highs and the lows of this sport. Like, you get to feel all the excitement I had yesterday of almost like a full night of just riding cloud nine, except for a couple moments like that of seeing someone you love that much get taken out like that. But them's the breaks. That's the fight game, baby. Then we got Nico Price, Michel Ferreira, whatever. It's Brazilian. It's hard to pronounce, but he is this flashy, spinning fighter. He loves to do backflips, jump off the cage. He made his fame probably in Canada. People remember from, he fought Tristan Connolly on, I don't know, a couple days notice. Tristan Connolly comes in at 170. Usually fights, he just fought at 145. So he comes in at 170, just tiny for 170. Didn't cut a lick of weight. Michel Pereira is probably 200 pounds plus. But they came in and he was doing all his backflips and stuff, gassed himself out. They went for a 15-minute war that Tristan Connolly ended up winning. It's kind of a little bump in the road for Michel Ferreira. He probably undersold Tristan Connolly, but has really gone on to, find a balance between that flashy, spinny style and his actual striking and his explosiveness. Definitely his gas tank is the issue. We saw that last night again. He was piecing Nico Price up, and what matchmaking, like UFC, Dana White, Sean Shelby, all these people, Mick Maynard, like the matchmaking of putting Nico Price and Michel Ferreira up against each other, for those people that don't understand, is just two absolute wild man. Michel Ferreira in the flips and the spins and that kind of capoeira style, and Nico Price just in, I will never give up. You're gonna have to, put a nail in my coffin to stop me. Throws punches from every angle from the bottom, has knocked people out with up kicks and hammer punches or hammer fists from the bottom and stuff. Just two absolute wild men that went in for a war, and that's exactly what it was. Michel Ferreira did a backflip into full mount in a fight against him. Right, it was ground and pounding, but gassed out in the third round. But he was already up 2 rounds to nothing, stuck in there, didn't get knocked out in that third round. They're both dog tired, but again, just like fight of the night performance. Oh, this is what I didn't say. This is what I was trying to get to earlier, is in talking about not making all that money and the show and the win bonuses and the fight structure. There's also something in all these fights, the bonuses. I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of this, but there's also, if you get a really nice knockout, if the two of you go and just have a war and it's an amazing fight, you get these bonuses. It's either, a performance bonus for A knockout or a nice submission, that'd be like for one guy. So say, who would have got one even on this? So like Dracus Duplessis, right? He knocked out Trevin Giles in the first round, probably got a performance bonus for that, right? So he'd win $50,000 on top of whatever his fight purse is. But then somebody like Nico Price and Michel Ferreira, they might get fight of the night. So they both get $50,000 for a bonus, right? So there's kind of the singular bonuses and the fight of the night bonus kind of thing. But every once in a while, they've done it twice now. I think it was the last Conor McGregor card and this one. Last one was Tony Ferguson asking Dana White privilege, asking for 75K bonuses instead of 50. And they obliged, they did it. And you could see it in the fighters that they were fighting so much harder. Everybody's going after these bonuses. Nobody's playing it safe. Everybody wants to make it exciting, which is great. And then this weekend, my guy, Sugar Sean O'Malley, says 75K bonuses. And they say, yes, sir, Mr. O'Malley. It's the Sugar Show. This is your main event. We'll do whatever you want, right? Great to see. I loved it. But what kills me and makes me so sad is that a $50,000 bonus should be great for everybody, right? You never want to look at that in the face. And 25 grand on top of that, that's awesome as well. But the fact that these guys are putting their lives on the line and that $25,000 makes that big of a difference to make it that much more exciting. And I'm sure it was a big card. Everybody they know what kind of opportunity it is to fight on a Connor card or on a Sugar card and get the spotlight that you do. Everybody wants to make it a performance, but you could tell that last night that $25,000 made a difference for people. And that breaks my heart because these guys should be getting paid so much money that doesn't matter, right? Same with this show and win bonus. It shouldn't matter. They should be getting the same regardless. Nobody at this level of fighting is showing up and, just trying to make it through to get a paycheck, right? Like there might be, but it's so far and few between that it's the exception to the rule and we need to change how we're doing this, right? But that's what I'm saying of like, if you're surprised at the wildness of what each and every one of these fights was, and I warned everybody, I tried to give public service announcements. I was posting all the time about what time they started. Anyways, so that was great. Michel Ferreira got a unanimous decision. Like I said, he got up 2-0 on him and just survived for the third one, but it was just a wild fight. Then Max Payne Griffin versus Carlos Condit. One of those ones where, Carlos Condit has fought like 40 times in the UFC. Like he is just one of those OGs of the OGs. Just a really, really good guy. Has so much history with the UFC, so many fans. Everybody loves watching him fight. Really awkward style, really hard to figure out. It seems like you'd think if you had 40 UFC fights that are well documented to see a guy's strategy and how he's evolved, you'd think he'd be pretty figured out. But you know what? Max Griffin looked great in the first round, was really piecing him up, but faded a little bit. And Carlos came on really good. Max Griffin still pulled out the unanimous decision, but like just for that to be the last fight on the main card to get, all that buildup and all that energy that was flying through this card and just building and building and building. You can never go wrong with Carlos Condit to, take that and run with it. And it was an awesome 3-round fight again. So before I hop onto the main card, let's just start. So Zumagulov got gypped and came back and standing guillotine him first round. Awesome way to start off the card. Brad Tavares, Akhmedov war for 5 minutes. Brad Tavares looked great. One of the most wins in the middleweight division. Huge win for him, right? Jessica Jennifer Maia, number 4 versus number 7. Awesome fight. Judges got it right. It was really fun to watch, really bloody. Then we went on Duplessis knockout. Ryan Hall, unfortunately, it was tough to watch him lose. Nico Price, Michel Ferreira, right? 5-round war. Why do I keep saying 5-round? 3-round war. Another 3-round war with Max Payne, Carlos Condit. And that wasn't even the main card. If you would have just cut it there, that would be an amazing, amazing card. But you get to start off the main card with the main event. Sugar Sean O'Malley up against Chris Moutinho. So Sugar Sean has had this dark cloud hanging over him for years now because everyone says you haven't fought nobody. You fight cans. The only tough guy you fought was Cheeto, and you got hurt. You hurt your leg, and he ended up finishing you, right? Like he's had this all over him. So he's supposed to fight. Louis Smolka was supposed to fight. Who's again not top 15, not top 10 kind of material, but really tough guy, lots of experience, would have been a good fight. He backs out, a week to go in the fight, and all these fighters put their names in because Sugar Sean's a big name. I might be a bit facetious with my own fandom of him and blow him up, maybe, calling it the main card and stuff, but it's got some tinge of truth, right? Like, he is a huge name. He has that it factor. Everybody wants to fight him. So probably 5 or 6 different bantamweights put their name in to fight Sugar Sean, right? Guys ahead of him, guys behind him. Everybody wants a piece of Sean because it's a huge name. It's a huge moment on this huge card. So Sugar puts out, Ricky Simone, who's a wrestler, right? Like, everybody would have loved to see it, puts his name in because he was one of the ones that said, yeah, I'll fight him. So he says, yeah, let's do it. And then he can't make 135. So now we're a couple days out of the fight and they need to find something. So they grab this Chris Moutinho, he had just fought not long ago. He was 9-3. It was kind of, everyone was thinking he was doing really well. He's just ultra durable, so hard to finish. And really looking well on the regional scene. Lost his last fight, so he would have been 10-3 and probably got signed by the UFC. Their UFC really had their eye on him. He ended up losing that fight, so he's 9-4. Kind of looks like a salty record. Gets his debut, and he's going up against Sean O'Malley. So everybody comes out, all the boo birds. Oh, Sean O'Malley's not fighting anybody. Sean O'Malley's fighting a can. I'm getting texts like a motherfucker because everybody knows I love Sugar Sean. Like, oh, look at what your boy's doing again. And I'm thinking, he had no control over this. And to me, that's unfortunate. He would like to have that step forward in his career, but Sugar Sean, with a stage like this, he's going to make it a show, right? And I know that. And I just said, like, he's going to come out of this with some more highlights at the very least, right? There's no way he loses to this guy. He trains too hard. His mind is a steel trap. He understands the game. He comes off as cocky, but it's all calculated. If you listen to his podcast and listen to the way this guy acts, he is a superstar. You guys just don't see it yet. Like, he is special. So I am, but again, it's kind of a lose-lose, right? Like, if Chris Moutinho does land a lucky punch or lucky kick, it's a fight game, right? Sean O'Malley could snap his leg like fucking Connor. You never know. So I'm nervous. I'm around the house. I got my bucket hat on. I got my Sugar hoodie on. I'm decked right out, running around, so excited. And this fight starts, and it is a war. Like, Sean is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him, spinning kicks, teep kicks to the gut, like just sticking him and right hands, left hands, elbows, like landed a couple clean head kicks, couple clean wheel kicks, like spinning back kicks to the guts. He was just blowing this kid up, but he would not go away. This Chris Moutinho, Soulless, that's his name on Instagram. I think it's like Soulless MMA. Go follow him, or Soulless Chris or something. He put on such an impressive performance. He won himself so many fans. He did exactly what he needed to do. I loved it. He did awesome. Good for this kid. But he took such a beating at the end of the first round. He was rocked and clipped, and he could barely stand up for the second round. I thought it should have been stopped in between. I thought the corner should have stopped it. But, keep going. And it was so good for Sean because and at the end of the first, Sean kept looking up at the clock and looking at the time, and people were saying, oh, like Rogan and DC, everyone's looking at this and, oh, he's looking at the time. And to me, I wasn't that worried about it. Like, yeah, O'Malley is a cerebral fighter. He likes to know how much time he has. He wants to know what he can conserve and what he can't, right? Because he knows he has to keep up a certain output level just to deal with the aggression that was coming at him, because Chris was not taking a backward step. Sean might have been tagging him with everything, but he's always moving backwards. He's just piecing him up, counter-striking him, just unloading, but he's tiring out because moving backwards is tired. He was just being smart about it and figuring out, like, do I need to change up my style? Do I need to grapple? You could see all this stuff going through his brain. He's not an idiot, and he trained so hard. I knew he had it within him. But you never know. You could land a lucky punch. And Chris, landed a couple good shots, on the break when he was chasing him down and Sean was getting on his bike and evading. There was a couple of times where, landed good, but Sean saw them. He has a good chin. Like, this is what people don't understand. He is the real deal. So I was never really nervous in that fight that Sean was going to lose. And more as it went, I was getting excited because of the success that Sean was having and the highlights and the stunning he was doing, dribbling the basketball through his legs as he's throwing punches, like just classic Sean, really putting on a show like he wants to do. This is what he talks about, is he wants to be a showman. He wants to show the world his fighting style and how he does things, right? And it was just awesome to see. But then also at the same time, I'm seeing this ultimate gladiator, Chris Moutinho, who only due to matchmaking in these realities, is in this situation where he shouldn't be. And he's just taking damage and taking damage. And I'm just waiting for this towel to come flying over the cage because he's just eating damage and is never going to be the same. I guarantee you, if Moutinho made it to the UFC, maybe one more fight on the regional circuit, did well, made it on and got matched up with someone in the bantamweight division that is more his style, maybe even featherweight. Like, this guy could probably fight at 125. He's not huge either, right? Sean's way bigger than him, and he is just eating this. And that's awesome that he has that, and that jaw that he has and that chin is a huge tool that he could serve. But he just wasted so much of that chin in that fight. And I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised to see this Chris Moutinho come out and make a good showing of himself in the bantamweight division and have a good little career. But it would also not surprise me to see him come back and not look the same and never achieve the heights of what he just achieved in that fight, because he will never be the same. You see this happen with guys, right? It's like guys that fight Justin Gaethje. You might win, but you might come out on the other side of it not the same person. I really fear that Chris Moutinho is not going to be the same. And I'm thinking this the whole fight. And at the last end, there's 30 seconds left, and Sean is just teeing off. When they ended the fight, it's 4:33 in the third round. So there was 27 seconds left when Herb Dean stepped in. Chris had not landed a punch in probably a couple minutes. He was just getting teed off on. He could barely stand. His legs were wobbly. So when Herb Dean stepped in, you could hear Rogan and DC, and a rare miss from Rogan. He's usually pretty good on this stuff, but I think you have to call it out when it's wrong. He's saying, no, he should have let that fight carry on. And all my friends, my dad texted me, oh, they should have let that fight finish. Everybody's texting me, they should have let that fight finish on Instagram. Everyone's saying that. And to me, not a chance. That fight should have been stopped much before that. You need to give this kid a chance to live on. It's not happening. He showed that he could land on Sean in very suspect circumstances, and even that wouldn't put him down, right? Like, there was no chance in hell he wins that fight. And that 30 seconds could have been the 30 seconds that changed his life, right? He could have got dropped, and Sugar could have dropped that, atomic Dan Hendo bomb down on him like he did to what's his pickle last fight. Like, he had already taken so much. He did not need that. I'm sure he's upset, and I'm sure knowing he wanted to go down a shield and he wanted to go like a gladiator. I see that. But I felt like the only person in the world that said, that fight should have been stopped. And I said it right away, right? Rare on Instagram. I said, rare miss by Rogan. I think that should have been stopped much before that. Thank God. Like, this kid was taking way too much punishment. And sure enough, who comes to my rescue later that night when we're watching the press conference? Dana motherfucking White. For all the bad stuff and the fighter pay and all that I talk about with Dana White, but I think he's doing the best he can. Until somebody forces his hand, why would he change? Why would he start paying these guys more? Why would he change the structure, right? Like, it makes no sense to it. I don't blame Dana White for this. He's doing everything he should. It's the fighters and the people around him that need to hold the accountability to bring that thing forward. But having said that, I love Dana White. I think he's so smart in the way he goes about this, and he says the right thing, and he plays dumb when he needs to play dumb. I think he's a genius of a man, and just plays it off like he's not a lot of the times. But they got asked, what did you think of that stoppage? Because there was so much, apologies, people. My nose is just itchier in a mug this morning. No water. Anyway, and he says, no, I thought that fight could have been stopped between the first and second round. I thought that fight could have been stopped in the second round. I thought that fight could have been stopped 2 or 3 minutes earlier in the third. He said the fact that Herb Dean stepped in there, it was a mercy, right? Like, sure, he could have finished his round, but he said, and I was like, yes, Dana, thank you. This is what's going to endear you to fighters, right? When you look back on what he's done, and we're going to look back and just be thankful for Dana White. What Dana White is doing right now with this sport, like, they're talking about it taking over hockey as the fourth major sport, but then they were talking last night, they're like, is that even the reality? Is the UFC the biggest sport in the world right now? Like, is it bigger? Because NBA's ratings in the shit, right? Like, football's not doing too good. The UFC's on a rocket ship. It's not slowing down at all. And I don't know. I'm just happy. I feel like I've got my horse tied. Not that I don't love football and I don't love hockey and love all, baseball to a certain degree in certain circumstances if they're not playing 180 games a season. Bullshit. So that was great. I was on cloud 9, and what was so nice for me is, so now to me, the night's over. The rest of it is just gravy. The fact that I get to see Yana Kunitskaya, one of my favorite fighters, Tai Tui Vasa, one of my favorite fighters, Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, 2 of my favorite fighters, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, 2 of my favorite fighters. This is all cream. This is all the cherry on top of the sundae, because I already had an amazing fight night with my main event, and it went better than it probably ever could, given the circumstances, right? Sean could have knocked him out with the first punch he threw, and that would have been exciting too, but he didn't get all that cage time and that go into deep waters and a little bit of adversity to deal through. Like, that was the best thing Sean could have hoped for, really. Didn't take any damage, really. Like, let's just, before I move on to the rest of the fight, let's just take a quick look at, what was it? 230 fucking significant strikes in a 3-round fight. Well, 2 rounds and 1 round of 4.5 minutes, but he probably could have landed another 60 significant strikes in that last 30 seconds. He was teeing off unabated, and you could see he was saving his energy to those last couple of minutes. That's when he poured it on and got the finish. But if he wouldn't have, or like maybe Herb Dean just decided, well, I haven't stopped it yet. If he doesn't go out, I'm not going to stop it, right? Which we've been full within his rights to do too. Like, this is why I think it's tough, and being a ref is such a tough decision, right? Because there would have been the same controversy the other way if he wouldn't have stopped it, right? Anyways, but yeah, I think that's a record too. 230 significant strikes in a 3-round fight. I think that's a record in bantamweight division too. So just great for Sean all around. But then we go back. How do I go back on this biznitch? Past events. Dustin Poirier recap. All right, main card. All right, so then we got Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. Irene Aldana missed weight by 5 pounds. Which is always tough. This might sound sexist, and I hope it doesn't, because it's pretty known in the fight game that females and cutting weight is a little bit different than males. They have ovulation cycles and their periods. That, not saying that's what happened, I don't want to assume, but I always give a little bit more leeway, because there is realities that women deal with weight cutting, where their bodies are just harder to time and harder to treat like a science, because there's just other factors that aren't under your control that can throw it off. So but 5 pounds is a pretty big weight miss. And she kept alluding there was issues, there was these things. And, no one from the UFC, especially Dana, wasn't making a big deal about this, wasn't saying shit. And then I found out in the post-fight press conference, he's talking about all these fighters and giving out bonuses. And Irene Aldana looked awesome. Finished Yana Kunitskaya, who's one of my favorite fighters, in the first round. Looked really sharp with her boxing. And just, she's so strong. And Dana was like, whoa, why didn't we give her some money? And all that stuff. Like, she needs a bonus too. Like, let's get her a bonus. And then somebody asked about the weight, and he goes, oh, she missed weight? And he had no idea. He didn't even know that she missed weight. So I was thinking, like, maybe there was a really good excuse, because if they didn't even tell Dana and they didn't think it was that big a deal, because usually Dana doesn't like when people miss weight, right? The UFC would prefer that everything went off without a hitch. Anyway, but that was a great fight. Nice little quick one, just keeping the finishes rolling. I mean, this is what I thought was just a perfect night. You had the perfect mix of, full 3 or 5 round wars. No 5-round wars. There's one 5-round fight, and it ended in the first round due to injury. What am I talking about? All 3-round wars or finishes early. So that was nice. You get a late finish with Sean, then you get an early finish with Irene Aldana, Yana Kunitskaya. Comes up to the heavyweight bout, right? The triplicate of amazing fights at the top of the card. So Tai Tui Vasa, one of the most up and coming stars. Not even up and coming. He's there. He is a star. Tai Tui Vasa is an Australian fighter with just the best personality and lets it shine through. He's such a goofball. He does these shoeies all the time, where he gets people in the crowd to spit in a shoe. Like, everybody that wants to spin it, I'll spin, they fill it with a beer, and then he chugs it. And he does those all the way out when he wins. He does them all the time on interviews and stuff. This has been his thing for years. And he just builds and builds. Every time Tai Tui Vasa fights, he comes out of it with thousands and thousands of new fans. Tonight, not excluded. So the match, again, like Dana White, Sean Shelby, so the matchmaking. So Greg Hardy, if people don't know who Greg Hardy was, he was an NFL player. He got kicked out of the NFL for assaulting women. Not a very good dude coming in, not a lot of fans coming in. Everybody hated him. The MMA world is very much unforgiving of things like that. He has grown a lot of fans, and he seems to have turned his life around and be doing well, but he doesn't do himself any favors, because he is a bad dude that, speaks his mind and believes in his skills. And I think, anybody that wants to hear an amazing interview with Greg Hardy and see, the other side of it, not this bad media side that's been painted of him. MMA Breeze, who I had on the podcast last week in build up for this card. He did a great interview with Greg Hardy that I really thought highlighted more of not his softer side, because he wasn't all that soft in the interview, but just, you know, a more human side of who he is and kind of his mindset going into it. But having said that, you know, like I can, you know that of Greg Hardy and be a big fan of his myself, where I've kind of gone over these things and listened to people in his camp and people I really respect, of his coaches saying like, no, he's not that guy anymore. He has really changed around. He's super respectful, all these things. Knowing that and knowing the public perception of him is still this guy that everybody hates. Everyone wants to boo him. You know, he's still known to, I'd say 9% of fans, it's just this wife beating piece of shit that nobody likes, that everyone wants to see lose, right? Not saying that I feel that way. I think I've come a long way with Greg Hardy, and I really enjoy him as a fighter, and respect what he's doing and what he's trying to do with his life and where he's going. But knowing that of just, you know, the perception of Tai Tui Vasa of just this fan favorite, everybody loves him, everyone wants to see him win, and Greg Hardy, everyone hates him, and just to know that matchmaking and then to see the fight play out where they just go in toe to toe swinging and Greg clips Tai Tui Vasa, his legs go wobbly, comes in for the kill, but Tai, you don't ever want to just wade into the waters with Tai Tui Vasa. He is a huge dude and he hits like a Mack truck, and he comes slinging around, just like kind of a glancing blow off the top of the forehead, and just takes Greg Hardy's legs out and comes down with the ground and pound, finishes right early, up on the cage, doing shoeies. Great post-fight interview. Just, again, just riding the wave of this perfect night, just brought himself so many fans. And when we see the numbers that come out of this and how many people bought this pay-per-view, he is going to be on a rocket ship as well. But just like I'm saying, like just this night of fights, people, you can't even understand. This is the thing. I tried to warn you. If you didn't watch this is your own fault. And maybe I should have done this earlier just to talk about these storylines that were coming up, of it. Then we have Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson, the co-main event. Two of my personal favorite fighters in the welterweight division. Really love both guys. Gilbert Burns has been fighting in the UFC for a really long time. He was at 155. Like, I don't know, when you see him last night, it's amazing that he ever made 155. I don't know how he did it. Whatever, we'll never know. It defies physics. Some guys just do that. They're able to cut weight like a mother. But he's been on a roll and is such a nice guy and such a good dude, and really has a personality that everybody wants to see him win, and they want to see him do well. Which was funny to see him get booed, because the diehard fans know that, you know, Gilbert Burns is just an awesome guy, but he understood it because he's got lightning in his hands, but he's a grappler at heart. Like he just beat Rafael Lovato. Is that who he is? In a grappling in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu competition, right? Like, and submitted him, I think. Like, Gilbert Burns is no joke on the ground. And Stephen Thompson, the nicest motherfucker, the NMF belt. So Stephen Thompson is from South or North Carolina, one of the Carolinas. His dad's been his coach in karate since he's been this tall. And it's just the salt of the earth, nicest guy, doesn't swear, you know, has charisma out the ass in his own way, you know, does streaming and all these things, checks all the boxes, you know, is in the gym teaching kids all the time. Is just like the pinnacle of who you want your kids to look up to. Like when you think of martial arts and, you know, the complete opposite of the bad blood and all that, and you just want to think of pure like karate style of respect for your opponent and cerebral thinking and a flashy style, right? Like he is the most sophisticated striker in the UFC, barring maybe one or two guys, right? Israel Adesanya might have something to say about that. You know, Sugar Sean O'Malley might have something to say about that in very different styles, but and that's why it's so hard to compare the two of them and how effective they are. But you can't take anything away from Stephen Thompson's skills and his anti-wrestling, and that's a big thing over his careers. Gilbert is so good at the ground, but Stephen Thompson's so hard to get to the ground. Everybody tries to get Thompson on the ground, right? Like you're not going to stand with him. You cannot stand with him, right? Tyron Woodley found out he could, but he had to just not attack at all and only counter strike, because if you try and wade in on Stephen Thompson, he's just so quick, you just get cracked. You don't even know what he hit you with. Like, was that a foot? Was that a knee? Was that a fist? I have no idea. It was too fast. I didn't even see it. I just know my face hurts, right? So going into this fight, and not only that, but Stephen Thompson just went on Rogan and did an amazing interview that just showed all these things I'm talking about of what a great guy he is and how much goes into his training and how and the ups and downs of his career, because he's 38. He's not a young chicken, right? Like this is and he deserves a title shot. He shouldn't have been fighting Gilbert Burns. He should have been fighting Kamaru Usman in the next title shot. Leon Edwards might have something to say about that, but like, and even still, this is what I thought in this fight. So On the feet, it was so clear that Steven was miles ahead of Gilbert, but the only way Gilbert could win was just to take him down and hold him. But every time on the ground, he wasn't all that effective. The only thing he was effective at was limiting Stephen Thompson from attacking back, right? And even then, they're getting into, Stephen was landing his shots from the bottom too. But clearly, Gilbert Burns won by a very small margin of just, he knew how to play the game. Because he held him down and controlled him for a good amount of time in all 3 rounds. But the control he had on the ground wasn't all that great. He was never really threatening much. Steven got some punches back, and when it was on the feet, it was not even close. Steven was completely outclassing him. So it's the unfortunate thing where at the end of the fight, how I felt was, yes, Gilbert Burns won that fight, but I still think Stephen Thompson, even off a loss, should fight for the title, right? And Leon Edwards, I think, is the guy that makes that reality kind of go away. And hopefully Stephen can maybe get a quick turnaround against one of these other guys. Maybe we'll see him kick Colby Covington's head off or Usman or one of these guys. I think he beats all of them, right? Like I think Stephen beats anybody not named Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, to be honest with you. And even Gilbert Burns, I think you run that fight back a couple times and it's 50-50 which way that goes. I'm not quite sure if Stephen Wonderboy has it takes to beat Kamaru, but I think Stephen Wonderboy has the best chance of beating Kamaru of everybody else that hasn't fought him. So many people have fought him and come up against him. I feel like he's the most interesting person in that welterweight division. I mean, that Duplessis guy that was the first fight on the prelims that knocked Trevin Giles out, it might be up there in a couple of years, but right now you need some welterweight contenders, and I still think Stephen Thompson is that guy. And he's so well liked that the UFC kind of does some crazy things. Yeah, getting a title shot off a loss is not a reality, but I don't know, maybe Leon Edwards asks for some extra money. Maybe he doesn't step back, weirder things have happened. I still have lots of hopes. I love Stephen Thompson. I really want to see what happens with him. Awesome for Gilbert Burns. He said, I just fought Kamaru and lost. I'm probably not getting another title shot. I want to stay active. I want to start beating guys. So he threw out all the names. He said, Leon Edwards, you want it. Kamaru Usman, if you want to give me another title shot, I'll take it. But, Jorge Masvidal, Colby Covington, anybody at the top of the rankings, you can get it. And I think that's awesome. And that's perfect. He did exactly what he needed to do last night and said exactly what he needed to say. Was awesome on the mic. Sure, he was getting booed in the arena, but I feel like it's so funny to listen to all the interviews and know what all the hardcore sentiment is behind all these fighters. And then you go to the fights and it's so not the people that really care about the sport that are in that arena. It's people that have paid all this money and also a Connor crowd is much different than a regular crowd. I thought he did awesome on the mic, was likable. Like, I think he won a lot of fans last night, maybe not in that arena, but people watching at home are going to come out of that really, really enjoying Gilbert Burns, and probably he's going to be in a huge spot the next time he fights. It's probably going to be, highlighting a big fight night, or maybe on a pay-per-view card against a big name as well. And I think that's awesome. I want to see all the best for these guys. Pretty much everyone on this main card, I want to see the best for in the next couple of years. I really don't dislike anybody. Which brings us to the main event, Dustin and Connor. This one I've been fascinated with for a long time. Dustin has been a wrecking ball since I came back in the UFC and was watching it continually. I love watching his story, love watching his mindset change, his skill set, the wars with Justin Gaethje, his build up to fighting Khabib, so many of these, his fight with Max Holloway, like just the storyline and what he's been through. Has just prepared him so much for what Connor was going to throw at him this week. And it was so fascinating to watch. And going into this week, going into this couple weeks of like the media blitz as it turns on, I had this feeling Connor was going to win. Right? Last time I had a really strong feeling Dustin was going to win. I was actually quite sure, not to toot my own horn, but I really thought the leg kicks were going to have something to do with it. I thought Connor, with that time off and how much the leg kick game had evolved and how good Dustin was at it, especially after fighting Justin Gaethje and seeing the power and knowing it's not just about the leg kicks, it's about knowing when to throw the leg kicks and know when to throw them so that they don't get checked. You look at Justin Gaethje, he's one of the best guys at throwing them on the end of combinations with that chopping so that you don't get countered with it. And I just think it's so fascinating to see how this leg kick game is evolving. Anyway, So I had this feeling for Connor, but then as the interview started to roll in and you got to see the mindset that Connor was coming in with, it was interesting to see because he looked not rattled, but just definitely a different Connor was there. And it looked like it was partially an act, but it looked like he was getting so fired up into the character that he was really missing his swings. I thought the press conference was a 10-8 round for Dustin, right? Like that was inconceivable to me that would ever happen, right? Like Connor's lines fell flat. They didn't really make all that much sense. He was so much emotion. It almost just didn't land clean. Like usually he's just that, even with his anger, it still lands crisp. I think we got to see this with the Khabib fight too. He kind of gets off his rocker a little bit. And I didn't like that. I didn't think it boded well. Especially when you could see Dustin just rolling with the punches. He was so good. I thought maybe he was getting a little bit under his skin when he was throwing the hot sauce bottles, but then when you watch him bet and you actually hear what he's saying, he just says, "Don't let him come over here. I'm going to knock him out. I swear, Dana, if you let him get close to me, I'm going to hit him." Like, I'm fine. I'm chill, but just have lots of security. And they did for the rest of the night. And, throwing the hot sauce, he didn't care. And Dana White's right in his ear. Once he sits down, I'll bring more up for you, right? Like, and Dustin, yeah, no, I'm chill. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, that does not bode well, right? Like, I think Connor probably needed to do those antics to get him to the place where he needed to bring that dark part of him out that made him fight amazingly, right? And so then at this point I'm leaning Dustin, but I said, I kept telling people I need to see the walkout. Once I see Connor walk out, I'll know who I'm rooting for and who I think is going to win. Because the last fight, as soon as Connor started walking out, it was over. You could tell he did not look like he wanted to be there. He looked scared. And fair enough, once the fight started, I thought he did really well. I think people forget because of how that the second fight finished. I thought Connor was dominant in that first round. And to be honest, I thought he looked really good. I thought he looked better in this first round, right? Like, this is what's tough, is Dustin was saying, I was mopping the floor with him. I was absolutely beating him up and all this stuff, but I don't see that. And also, so everybody knows Connor, I think he got checked on one of those kicks. Like I said, Dustin knows how to play the game and knows how to not get a kick checked or how to limit that because of how many fights and wars he's been in with leg kickers that he knows how to, feed them in. Connor was coming in very Weidman style. I'm coming in here. I don't care, check or not. I'm about to kick through your fucking leg. Your leg's about to be mincemeat. And he was doing really good. But one of them got checked. And Dustin pointed at him, probably broke something in his leg. Still looked really good. The wrestling, Dustin was dominant. I thought Dustin maybe took over and won the rest of the round with his wrestling and the strikes on the ground. But Connor was doing good too, and he got up and then he takes that step back on that cracked leg and snaps his leg. Not an ankle. People keep saying ankle. That's a fucking broken leg. 100% that is leg. It's too high. And I saw it immediately. I was just trying to, I feel like this has been the last few injuries. When you're this much of a fight fan, you recognize it instantly. It was like, oh yeah, that's nasty. Like, that's broken leg. And then because the announcers didn't even know, it was just like, I just put it on my, broken leg, too bad, on my Instagram and just kind of let it because it was such an anticlimactic way to see it end. And I was so not disappointed because I couldn't be disappointed at this point. I was just like, this card was too good. It was too strong. There was too much excitement for this to be a bad card. This is just fighting. This is the reality of how it goes. And then all the craziness happened in the cage afterward, right? Like you could see Connor, because those breaks are scary and they hurt. Like when you listen to Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman talking about, it is painful as all hell. Just the fact that Connor could be clear-headed enough to even go to those dark places he went with that was interesting to me at the very base of it. And that is where I feel like I answered so many questions and caused so many questions, because you wonder how much of this is Connor putting on a show to make things go his way and to set the stage for future stuff, and how much is this genuine. And it seemed pretty fucking genuine when Connor was after the fight and he was saying that stuff about Dustin and what is my hat all freaking mollywallopy? Anyway, I don't know why I get distracted with this. My hat's all crooked in the camera and I don't like it. But it seemed pretty genuine, right? Like, but here's the thing. Connor going after Dustin's wife, saying that she's in his DMs and stuff. The thing with Connor is Connor usually doesn't say stuff. Even when you go back to the Khabib stuff, he doesn't say stuff without little kernels of truth in there, right? Like the stuff he was saying about Ali Abdelaziz and about Khabib. a lot of it had little kernels of truth. It was definitely twisted and put through a lens of how Connor wants it to come out. But there's always a little bit of truth to it. But Dustin and his wife have been together since they were in high school. She drove in all his fights. They are rock solid. Like, they are so close and all that, that I was thinking, man, like, and that Dustin didn't seem that upset about what he was saying about that, or he said he wasn't. He was more upset about Connor saying the death threats and that I'm going to kill you and stuff. And that apparently he was saying that as well when he was on the ground there with his broken leg, that saying that he's going to kill him. And Dustin really took offense to that. But I think what it is I think when there was the whole so in the second fight in the matchup, Connor promised to donate $500,000 to Dustin's fight for the forgotten. That's Justin Renz, but the Good Fight Foundation, which is Dustin's charity that he helps kids out in the Louisiana area with, and he's also working to build wells with Justin Renz Fight for the Forgotten, and they're building housing in Uganda right now. Dustin is just salt of the earth guy, really, really does great things. And his wife works really hard for the charity, and she's the one that runs all that stuff up. So then they hadn't got the donation in a couple months that they were talking about. So clearly Dustin and his wife were getting upset about this. I thought it was just Dustin because his wife doesn't post this stuff. You don't know what she's going with, but it came out that Dustin said, like, where's that money? Like, going back on it. And then Connor said, fuck you. We're waiting on an itemized list of what you're going to use the money for. We're not going to give you 500 grand without telling us what it's going towards. That's typical business and is the reality. And, you know, Dustin kind of looked shitty after that. And he even admitted, right? Like, but then Connor was just said, like, you'll get fucking nut. Like, that's when it all turned, and he went full dark right there of like, no, you want to do this to me, right? So Connor donates it to the Lafayette Boys and Girls Club, right? Dustin comes out and says, you know what? I'm just glad it goes to charity, right? Dustin plays it off perfect. Dustin does great. But I think his wife was the one that was pissed at all this, because now he's saying, your wife's in my DMs. I think she was DMing over all this charity stuff because she runs the charity and she does all this. I think she was the one that was getting pretty fired up with all this back and forth and all that, and probably took this to heart. And I think that's what Connor was saying about the DM stuff of like, and why he keeps going after her, because he knows I can't get into Dustin's head, but I was in his wife's head and she hates me, and I can just ride on that. And that's what's going to get me that fourth fight, because he does not want to let go of this and he wants to end this. That's who he is. And that is real. That's as real as it gets. And understanding it to that degree, that's not maybe what I would do. You know, being a nice Canadian kid like myself, I just, you know, I prefer a little bit more decorum in my fighters and a little bit more pulling yourself back from that edge. But if that edge is real and it's true, like it seems to be with Connor, I don't feel that there's even a touch of disingenuousness to these antics at the very least. And I just find it entertaining, you know, as long as it's genuine and as long as it's real. And I think it is coming from Connor. And I think, unfortunately for Dustin, you know, he probably wants nothing more than to be just separated from this and get away from it. But nah, that fourth fight's coming. Dustin's going to go fight Charles Oliveira. I think Dustin wins. Charles Oliveira is a tough fight, and he could beat him too. Like I wouldn't put huge odds. My favorite going into that would be Dustin. I think he's just too good, too strong-willed, too good of a chin, too huge for that weight class, right? Really good on the ground where Charles Oliveira might have a bit of an advantage, but it's not like Dustin's some chump. He's a black belt. He's awesome on the ground. He's lots of submissions himself. And in the stand-up, I just think he rips him to the body, beats him up, puts him in a tough spot, and ends up clipping him with something that he can finish, right? I just think the leg kicks, right? I just think Dustin's so good, which is why I think this overshadows what Connor's doing. And let me just get this out right now. Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith on that fucking broadcast line were so garbage awful. The worst. I couldn't stand listening to them talk for a fucking second, and for them to talk about Connor, oh, he's got this and that. He's fighting the best guy in the world. Yeah, Charles Oliveira has the belt, but it's Dustin Poirier if it's not Khabib, right? Like, let's be real. He's fighting the toughest guy in the cowboy fight was a bit of a run through. And now, right? So it's like, okay, so if you want to look at like the where it'd rank up in just skill level, I know it was at welterweight, but you want to take Connor or Cowboy and match him up against the top 15 of the lightweight division. Yeah, he'd probably get beat by a lot of those guys. So it's like Connor coming in and getting a matchup, an easy one against, you know, a number 15, 14 ranked guy. But okay, Now, and then he lost to the number one guy, right? Like, you went right to the apex of these fights that anything can happen. We just saw that anything can happen in these fights, and he lost, right? For them to talk about it, that he's just written off and that this is affecting his legacy. And so many people this week told me that Connor's not going to, if he loses tonight, he's not going to come back. And I was just, do you guys even know Connor? Like, he is a true martial artist. He wants it. He's going to fight for a long time. Like, people just think that people see money and they think they understand somebody. Like, oh, he's this big rich guy. I know him. I can peg him. If you haven't listened to the interviews going way back of who that kid was from Ireland that wanted to come up and shock the world and take over, you don't understand Conor McGregor at all. He's going to be back and he's going to beat up guys and he's going to win fights. Mark my words, he's going to win fights. He's going to win big fights. He might even beat fucking Dustin Poirier, right? Like, this was a freak accident. And I don't think that was as dominant as it was, right? Like, 2 of the judges had it as a 10-8 round for Dustin in that first round, even knowing what happened. I don't know. I thought that was definitely Dustin won that round 10-9, but I thought Conor was piecing him up on the feet, throwing those kicks. You know what? Every round starts fighting. They had 5 rounds, and Conor shows that when he trains hard, like Diaz too. I kept coming back to Diaz too and saying, oh yeah, that's a good fight. That's what we expected out of the first round. But yeah, Diaz too. He comes back. He trained so hard for that 5 round. I don't know. I want to see it again. I know there's all these antics that go into it that maybe muddy the waters of it a little bit, but I think we will see it again. I think that is I want to say like a really long-term recovery, but fuck, Chris Weidman just snapped his leg like that, and he was golfing like what, 6 weeks later? Like, still buggered up, and he's got a bunch of hardware in there, but like, and also Chris Weidman's a fucking freak of nature, but who knows? Maybe Conor will be back a little bit earlier than we think, and we'll see this again. I just thought overall, you couldn't ask for a better night. The UFC, I can't wait to see what the numbers come back. I think Dana White always has to be careful because they're a publicly traded company. He said that in the post-fight conference that he doesn't want to put things out too early, but I think they said they were trending for like 1.7 million buys just in America last night. So like, that's not counting worldwide. I think this is going to break some records. I think this, I think this fight is awesome. It's record setting. Not only did Sugar Sean set some bantamweight records with significant strikes, but I think there's some viewership records, maybe some gate records, who knows, that are going to come out of this. I think this is a big night. We're going to look back on this for a long time of, a big turning point in the sport too. Not a turning point because they're already on such a good trajectory, but just a big moment by, for sure. So, what else did I want to talk about? I'm trying to think of the main thing I want to talk about, those fights, and I'm glad I got that all out there. Talking about myself with work and just what amazing it's been to have a little bit of time to myself this weekend. Can't wait for Alyssa and the puppy to get home today and to give them so much snuggles and reunite, because it is sad to be alone for a couple days too, but just the outweigh of the happiness of just getting to reset and breathe and recharge is overwhelms the missing, but definitely that's there too. So excited for that. Really excited for, I think I'll probably end up just releasing this solo episode tomorrow, which I don't like to do. I feel like it's almost a cheat to release solo episodes on that Monday slot, that I feel like solo episodes are for Friday, but it's just so close to this fight, so I want to get my ideas out that I think I'm going to release this one. Also, the episode I was going to release tomorrow with Nick Walker, Side Chick, I think I talked about this at the start. I'll release that on Friday, and his new single Polymer is coming out on Friday, and I don't know. I'm excited for you guys to hear this podcast. Full discretion, I drank quite a few beers. He drank quite a lot of wine. Shit gets a little wild. Probably tell some stories that might be a little bit wild. I might have to send this, actually. That's half the reason I'm waiting maybe for Friday instead of tomorrow, is because I think I'm going to have to run this. Some of the other people in the stories might need to A-OK them before they go out, because I think me and Nick were just freewheeling a little bit and just getting to know each other and having a ton of fun and so many laughs. I enjoyed it so much. I'm really, really, really excited for you guys to hear this episode on Friday. So if you're hearing this, please go check that one out. Another thing I've written down here is if you haven't read GSP's book, I can't remember what it's called. It's not a big read. It's 200 pages, pretty good reading. Really interesting way that they did it. It's a mix between him and some of his coaches and really impactful people in his life, also writing little tidbits, and it is fascinating. I bought it for the trip back from Winnipeg and just almost read it all in one day. I think I got another like 30 pages left just because once I got back and dove into work, I had no time for reading, which breaks my heart, but it's just the realities of it. But man, is it a good book? You got to check it out if you like MMA at all, or if you just like people pursuing greatness and thinking things through and chasing a dream and not giving up on themselves. It's just so powerful what goes into it, and that's not even his full life story, right? Like just hearing the last couple episodes of Lex Friedman podcast and Joe Rogan podcast that George did, and just what a cerebral guy he is, and how intelligent and caring and nice he is deep down, of just what a good person he is, which I love to see. Like I said, with my fighters, I like to know that they're deep down a good person, even if they're a bad motherfucker too. Perfect example, Dustin Poirier, like just such a good person, but a bad man. Like you don't want Kamaru Usman, right? Nicest guy, like really salt of the earth. He will help, his shirt off his back, but bad motherfucker, right? Like that. Those are my types of guys. I love that. You got to be nice as they come, but when shit needs to be handled, it can be handled. Oh, I love that. So yeah, check that out. Because I usually don't do intros and outros on these little solo episodes, I'll try and remember all the things I usually hit on that. The YouTube page is getting really caught up. I think I'm behind. I meant to post on Instagram of all the episodes that are caught up. I think I'm like 7 episodes behind. So we're getting really close to being caught up fully on the YouTube page. And once we are, we can start doing clips, which are a huge part of growing the podcast. It's really intimidating for people to jump in on 3 hours. But if you can find 10 minutes, 5 minutes here and put up clips that people can check out, that's really going to go a long ways. I know it is for growing this podcast, and I'm excited to get there. We just need to start getting caught up so that the episodes are going up on YouTube in time with the release. Another big thing that I'm really looking for help on is that would actually help me with that too, is starting to get somebody that would listen to these episodes ahead. Like say I just recorded that one yesterday with Elijah, that 16-year-old kid, Vundakin from the UK, to send that to somebody and have them listen to it ahead of time, right? As soon as I record them, I'll send them, get somebody that listens to them and goes through and just kind of keeps a timestamp of the conversations and the topics that we cover, so that at the end of it, I have something to go off of. Because now once I start doing that, not only do I get somebody that's going to start giving me feedback on the episodes, because I know they're listening to them and I know that they're kind of documenting them and seeing if there's things they like or didn't like, or things that they can add in. And they can also, right, I've been really bad at this. We always talk about, I'll put that in the description. I say that in the episode, but then I don't listen back to them and I don't have it marked. So somebody could be listening for things like that. Like, hey, also you said you're going to put this link in this description, blah, blah, blah. And they mark it down at this time. That's when it's said. So I can go back and look at it and decide if that's something I wanted to put in it. That'd be really helpful. But I'm thinking, like if I had to pay somebody, $20 an episode or whatever to listen to it, if you want to get paid to listen to podcasts and maybe you enjoy them, that'd be awesome. And then I think it would build. And then by the time we are caught up on the YouTube page, if I have these really well timestamped and documented episodes, which is something I've realized that all the big major podcasts all have somebody that's hired on that does this. And, I just think it's such a key thing to the success of a podcast that I want to start it early and maybe start paying someone before I'm at the place where, I feel like people always start, they get a producer, then they get this, then they get that. And one of the latest ones they add on is kind of, I don't know what they call it, like a stenographer or a timestamper or whatever it is. But I think that's such a key part of a good podcast that I'm going to start bringing that in first. Maybe before I get a producer, I'll have that, because I think you can do a lot with it, and it helps lay out the hard to explain. It just helps document and make more of what that podcast is. That conversation can be turned into so many other things, but the first step is to understand where it all went and what was all discussed. And then you can chop that up and make it into new things and point people back to certain sections of the podcast. If you just want to show them, just listen to this one conversation. It's just 10 minutes on this, and you could send them that way. So I'm really excited about that. So if anybody listening wants to help me out with that, if that's all you want to do, that'd be fine. That'd be awesome. I'd really like to add that in. But then there's so many other rules within the podcast that I'm looking for help with. If you wanted to do more than that, that could be a starting point. And we could go to some more things. I have really big plans for, I know I say this every time, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. I have really big plans for where I want to take this podcast. And the biggest thing would be to have a little bit of help. And I'm very thankful for the help that I've gotten so far, but I'm also quite surprised. I think probably looking back on now that I'm a year in, I envisioned having a lot more help a lot sooner into the process. I kind of figured, once I start, people start to recognize, what it is I'm trying to create here, and they'll want to jump on board, which hasn't happened yet, which is a bit of a surprise. And you know what, maybe it was just a little bit of my own cockiness to assume that off the start, which is a good lesson to learn. It's a good learning lesson for me. And you know what, at the rate it comes to, what I found with this podcast is things happen for a reason. And, some things have taken longer than I want, but then they work out great when they finally do happen. So I'm happy to just be thankful with how things are going right now. And some really exciting things. My sister's getting married soon, and I can't wait. And I'm hoping to get a bunch of episodes recorded before that, so when I go out to the wedding, I don't have to think about it. I have lots of episodes in the can. So working really hard on that to make sure that happens over the next couple weekends. I'll probably be running pretty heavy to get lots of episodes locked up for you guys. So yeah, I hope if you watched those fights yesterday, I hope you enjoyed them. If you didn't, I hope you regret it very thoroughly, because I warned you. Just kidding. But you know what? If any of those storylines that I talked about today sound interesting to you, if there's a fight coming up, always just send me a text and just say like, hey, what's going on this weekend? Is there 1 or 2 fights that I should watch? Is there any storylines that I need to hear that'll suck me in? I'm always willing to bring people deeper into their fandom of MMA, and whether it's UFC, Bellator, I'm always here to chat it with people. I'm always looking for more people to come on and bullshit this stuff with me. Maybe it's video games, maybe it's something else, maybe whatever you're passionate about. I love just talking to people about something they're passionate about. And even if I have no interest in it myself, if you're passionate about it, I am fascinated by that passion. I think that's a huge example you'll see on Friday with Nick Walker's side chick, just about like making music and what goes into it. I have nothing that draws me towards making that type of music myself, but to see the passion that Nick had for it, I was fascinated. I had so many questions, and I felt like I learned so much. And now I am interested in it because I got to be entered into it through someone that's really passionate about it. And I feel like that's at the core of it, what's special about podcasts. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoy that episode on Friday. And yeah, you guys have a great week, and we will see you on the next one. All right. See you guys. 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 All right. See you guys.